Hi, welcome to Bruce's Garage. I'm Bruce and this is my garage. Look what I got behind me, right here. The DIY Detail Legacy Sponge. It's famous. But why do I have two? Well, one of them's version 2, one of them's version 1. I'm going to explore version 2 and figure out if you should just run right out and buy that new version. So come on in and let's have some fun. Thanks for joining me today as we look at the new DIY Detail Legacy Sponge version 2. So, should you run out and buy this thing? Well, let's talk a little bit about it and why they came out with a version 2. So, my understanding is it was primarily a change in suppliers. So, previously DIY Detail had Lake Country produce their foam products, and they've recently made a change to Buff and Shine. I think that was just primarily a supplier kind of issue. And so vendors do that sometimes. They'll switch suppliers. And I think that's what primarily drove DIY Detail to make a change. But was it just a change in the manufacturer, or is there really any change? Well, obviously, when you look at those, they appear to be pretty much the same. They certainly are the same, pretty much the same size. They seem to be pretty much the same width. Not really a difference there on width. So what is different? Well, this is a little bit brighter red. This one's been used. Any other differences? Well, in version 1, although I didn't know this, but Ivan's referenced it, there was kind of a fabric layer between the two layers of sponge that get glued. And you can feel that it's a bit rough when you rub your hand around the edge, which, by the way, you should never be washing with the edge of a sponge, any sponge, frankly. But especially when you've got two pieces of foam glued together, you don't, whether it's fabric in there or not, doesn't really matter. You don't really want to, because that is a little bit rough anyway. And the softness of the sponge is on both flat surfaces, not on the edge. It is more rigid there. And when I looked at version 2, honestly, if I can't tell the difference in terms of that. This is still rough. This part of the sponge still feels rough to me. It still feels like there could be a fabric layer there. Like I can't really tell any difference. I guess it's just glue, but it's rigid there. So again, don't use the sides of the sponge. Use the flat surface of the sponge. I think that's important. But I can't really tell whether there was a fabric layer or not, and now it's glued only. So I don't think that's a big deal. When I feel the density of the foam, I don't, subjectively, maybe this is a little, Legacy 2 is a little bit softer maybe than Legacy 1. Hard to tell. So really, I would say there's no noticeable difference. I will put it to the test, and I'll use it here using rinseless in a moment, but I don't really detect any difference there. And again, I have used this one a bit, and this one's brand new, so that could also impact my interpretation. The other thing I noticed, and I don't know if this is substantial or not, but the squares that are cut, they're bigger, so there's fewer squares on version 2 than there is version 1. So I think I counted on one of these rows that there was, like on this row right here, there was like 13 boxes on the old one and like 11 on the new one. Again, 11 cuts, 13 cuts. Frankly, I don't think that makes a difference, but I just wanted to point out that was one difference that I noted. Other than that, just in a cursory review, just of looking at these and holding them, I don't really notice, I wouldn't notice any difference. So that's just from my quick touching these, looking at them. But I'm glad I've got version 2 because I wanted to play with it a little bit just to alleviate or answer the questions. Should you run out and get a new one if you have version 1 already. Because if you don't have version 1, everything you buy is going to be version 2. It's not like you can pick and choose. But if you've already got version 1, should you go out and get version 2? Let's try it out, and then I'll let you know my opinion. So the Forerunner is all washed now with, I tried both sponges just so I could feel both at the same time. I will tell you overall, I didn't really notice any difference in the performance of the sponge, version 1 versus version 2. I will say when you do dunk them both in the bucket and you lift them out and feel them, version 2 seems heavier, which to me means it's absorbing more water or more of the rinseless wash. And I did confirm with Ivan, he said the foam is a little bit more dense, so it's firmer, but it's also softer to the paint. And that the reason they made the change is they were looking to do some enhancements on the sponge, one of which was to remove that fabric layer. So that's why they went to Buff and Shine. And so here's my real conclusion of the whole thing of using both version 1 and version 2 of the sponge. Number one, they both work great. It's the Legacy sponge. It works fantastic, especially for rinseless, but of course for anything on your vehicle. They work great, both of them. I would not recommend you go out and just buy version 2 if you have version 1. That doesn't seem like it's worthwhile. That they're close enough that if you don't have a Legacy sponge, well, when you order a sponge now from DIY Detail, you're going to get version 2. And if your version 1, you need a second sponge, or that sponge is ruined for some reason, or it's beyond its life, then you're going to get version 2. And then I'd run out and buy version 2. But other than that, I wouldn't run out to replace your version 1 sponge. I just don't think there's enough difference. I don't think that was the intent of DIY Detail either. I don't want to speak for them, but I don't think that was the intent. I think they wanted to make improvements. They found a supplier that could do that for them. And hence we have version 2 of the sponge. But I think you're going to be happy with version 1 or 2, whichever you have on hand. So I hope this has been helpful for you to at least understand the differences in version 1 and version 2, and that you don't need to run out. If you have version 1, you don't need to run out and buy version 2. Of course, if you're going to buy something at DIY Detail and you want to pick up that sponge or whatever, you can use coupon code Bruce's Garage to get 10% off at DIY Detail. I'd appreciate that. Helps support the channel. And look, I really appreciate DIY Detail for sending me version 2 of the sponge so that I could try it out and share my experience with all of you. As always, there's no other obligation on my part. In fact, there was no obligation to even do a video. I chose to do that myself, and my opinions are mine. And DIY Detail hasn't seen this video, and they won't until you do. So anyway, go out, just, have fun in your garage and just enjoy detailing. I appreciate you coming to Bruce's Garage. Have a great day. Thanks.